Walters Sports Bar is excited to welcome Nationals fans back to the ballpark this spring. Located directly across the street from Nationals Park, Walters is the preeminent sports bar in Navy Yard, boasting over 35 televisions, both indoors and out. Walters is a great location to catch the Nats all season long. Walters encourages all fans to check out coronavirus.dc.gov to get up-to-date information on current dining restrictions. Go Nats!
The Nats are on the road for a few more days, but they'll be back home this weekend. A long homestand. The weather should be beautiful. No better place to hang out before, during, or after the game than Walters, right across the street from the ballpark.
Scherzer sets. He goes. The pitch swung on, hit in the air. Left center field. Robles going back, shading his eyes with his glove, and he lost it in the sun. It lands on the warning track up against the wall, and Muncy, all the way around, comes in to score. McKinstry's at second with a fly ball lost in the sun double, and the Dodgers lead 1-0.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Monday, April 12, 2021, along with Nats insider Mark Zuckerman of MASNsports.com. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. The joy that was the Nationals' 6-5 season opening walk-off win over the Atlanta Braves, seeming like a distant memory these days. 5 consecutive losses now for the Nats since that great win to begin the season. The latest loss, a 3-0 loss at the Los Angeles Dodgers on Sunday to complete a 3-game sweep to drop the Nats to 1-5 on the year and to wrap up one of the more feeble offensive series you'll ever see from the Nationals or really any team. The Nats get shut out twice. The Nats draw 2 walks the entire series. And while the Nats do generate 30 hits in the series, 27 of the 30 hits end up being singles. Yes, the Nats are depleted, and we'll get in the latest on that COVID-19 situation. But wow, Mark, that was some kind of offensive performance by the Nats over the weekend.
I mean, it's singles, singles, and singles. And the problem is, if you're going to try to win games that way, then you need a whole lot of singles. You also need to be able to move runners up. You need to steal bases. You need to have some sacrifice flies and things like that. And you point out the walks, kind of an underreported part of this. They're not drawing walks. Now, they've been facing some pitchers for throwing the ball in the zone. I don't feel like they're chasing a lot out of the zone. They've also been very aggressive early in the count. It hasn't worked out. It should get better, but some of these guys who are in there and have been all along have got to start making better contact at the right moments and start elevating the ball more than they have been, because you can't win this way. Not in 2021, you can't win this way.
No, very difficult to do it that way. We will get to the latest on the COVID-19 situation for the Nats. We will get to the pitchers duel that largely lived up to the hype. I mean, neither guy went beyond 6 innings, but both Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw were quite good in that game on Sunday. As is always the case, we want to hear from you. You can tweet us your thoughts, your anger, your venom. Spew it right at us. We'll take it. We are here for you as the Nationals are in the midst of this 5-game losing streak. At Nats_chat on Twitter. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to become a sponsor of the Nats Chat podcast, email the man behind it, Tim Shovers. Again, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. I want to start off, though, with a bigger picture take. And this was one of the things that really worried me about the Nationals coming into this season. And I felt like this was highlighted in so many ways in this series. You have in the Dodgers the deepest team in Major League Baseball. You know, it's not just that the Nats got swept at the Dodgers over the weekend. It's that the Nats got swept at the Dodgers over the weekend, despite the Dodgers being without arguably their 2 best position players in Mookie Betts and Cody Bellinger. You know, for all the crying we can do about the Nats missing some of their key guys, the Nats were not minus their 2 best position players. Juan Soto and Trey Turner played. Mookie Betts did not play. Cody Bellinger did not play. And yet still the Dodgers did as they did. The Dodgers overwhelm you with their depth. The Nationals, to me, are lacking depth. It was one of my biggest concerns coming into the season. And, you know, whereas the Nats are playing guys like Hernan Perez, the Dodgers are playing guys like Zach McKinstry, and he's knocking the ball all over the place. And I just felt like that, as much as anything, I know for me anyway, stood out watching this series.
Yeah, how many of us knew who Zach McKinstry was prior to this weekend? We know who he is now, filling in the outfield for Betts in right field and then today in left field. Yeah, look, they are one of the very best, maybe the best organization in baseball for a lot of reasons. And it's not just how much money they spend on the big names. It is the depth they have. There is always another pitcher, always another position player they can call up from their system to help fill in the gaps. And they do it beautifully. They are a model for everyone else for a reason. That's not really who the Nationals are. And I think back to the beginning of the week, Mike Rizzo said, our stars need to step up. he knew that their only chance of a successful first week is if the big names performed, because he probably knew deep down that the depth guys weren't going to carry the load. That's just not how they're built. And so if you're the Nationals, pitching wise, it's got to be Scherzer and Strasburg and Corbin. Now, 2 of those 3 pitched well. And it's got to be Turner and Soto in particular. And while they have, I'm not going to nitpick on them because they have been pretty good here so far, especially Soto, it's just not enough. You need more from somebody else. They weren't getting it at the right times from Zimmerman, from Castro, from Robles. That's the way they're going to have to win, and you just have to hope that when these reinforcements come here in the next few days, it makes a difference. But that alone is not going to do it. They do need the actual big leaguers who are already on their roster to do more than they've done so far.
Yeah, so Davey Martinez revealed to you guys in his pregame Zoom press conference that the hope is that the Nats' 4 remaining quarantine players, Josh Bell, Kyle Schwarber, Josh Harrison, and John Lester, will be cleared on Monday. Did make it a point to say, though, Lester's going to need even more time to build up his arm. There's no doubt getting Bell, Schwarber, Harrison should help. But I also think we can't look at them and say, okay, they're going to save the day here. And all of a sudden, the Nats are going to become the 27 Yankees. I don't know. I mean, hopefully those guys do well and the Nationals pick it up offensively and don't get shut out twice in 3 games. But I also kind of think this could be a problem. I mean, it was a problem last season that beyond Soto and Turner, the offense had real issues. And you watch this series and it's they got Ryan Zimmerman as their cleanup batter. All due respect to him, that's not really where he should be anymore in his career. Victor Robles, as well as he had been doing, ends up going 3 of 13 with 3 singles and no walks in the series. I think people kind of need to check themselves a little bit. Okay, getting these guys back from the COVID-19 protocols definitely should help. But I'm not sure it's just going to fix everything either.
Not alone. No, of course not. Like I said, they're going to need it from some others too. But Josh Bell as your cleanup hitter is probably more what you had in mind than Ryan Zimmerman as your cleanup hitter. Kyle Schwarber as your number 5 hitter is probably more what you had in mind than Jordy Mercer as your number 5 hitter. I don't think anybody ever expected that to be the case 1 week into the season. The other thing I would say is, okay, who'd they get shut out by? A couple guys named Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw. So let's at least acknowledge the competition they were facing. This was the worst confluence of events that could happen to open a season. Your roster is depleted, and you're facing the 2 best teams in the National League, at least they were last year, and they figure to be again close to it this year, and facing a couple of aces. Now, I'm not trying to excuse it all, but I do think that is part of the equation there, and that when they're facing a little more of the run-of-the-mill pitchers, hopefully it turns out to be a little bit different. But yes, they need more from Robles. They need more from Starlin Castro. They need more from their catchers. Here's one thing where the guys coming back could make a difference. The bench is going to be deeper and better now because these guys who are hitting 5, 6, 7 for them are now your options off the bench. And so I think that does have a domino effect and helps maybe play some matchups later in games. Zim's now coming off the bench for a key at bat late in the game. But no, it's still not good enough. And I think if more than anything, what we've seen, and we kind of knew this going into the season, their margin for error is kind of thin. They kind of know the way they have to win. And if they don't do it that way, they don't have a whole lot of other ways to win games. And that may be the larger concern here, is that if your 2, 3 best guys aren't delivering for you at the plate, do they have the other ones to get it done for you?
Yeah, they're not very deep. I mean, that's the worry. I mean, Eric Fetty is starting game 1 at the Cardinals on Monday. We're going back to this. We're doing this again. Eric Fetty is still starting games for you. That's kind of where they're at. I tell you something else that stood out to me watching the game on Sunday. When you are having to utilize guys who you're not used to utilizing, there can be all sorts of unintended consequences. So what happened very early in the game where Yadiel Hernandez is a starting left fielder and he collides with Trey Turner on that Gavin Lux first pitch pop out in shallow left to begin the bottom of the first inning. I don't know, is that because Yadiel Hernandez has barely played for the Nationals? I tend to think that's part of the reason. And he nearly he does steamroll Trey Turner. Thankfully, Trey was okay. But there are things like that can happen too, that that lack of familiarity with each other can lead to something. And thank God Trey was all right. Could you imagine if we're talking about that right now, that Trey Turner got hurt in game 3 of this series?
No, for about 20 seconds there, everyone's heart, sank. And yeah, that would be complete disaster for this team if it happened. Thankfully, it wasn't. But another one along those lines, Jonathan Lucroy catching Max Scherzer again. And Max did make the point to say that he felt a lot more comfortable this time around than he did on opening day. And he didn't, totally throw Lucroy under the bus and say that the home runs were his fault on opening day. But he kind of said something to the effect of, now that he knows what my patterns are a little bit better, and I know just pitch the game that I want to pitch and don't necessarily just go off of the way that he's calling it. That was a little bit of a subtle thing like, okay, hey, hang on a second, Jonathan. I'm Max Scherzer. I'm calling the shots here. You're going to listen to how I want to pitch, not the other way around, and maybe that wasn't the case on opening day.
Alex Avila is back. We saw Yan Gomes Saturday night. Avila has caught Max before. Were you surprised that Avila didn't get the start on Sunday?
Yeah, I was. I figured, I just kind of assumed that was going to happen, but I think it may have been an offensive thing, the matchup with Kershaw, that they wanted the right-handed bat of Lucroy in there, and that didn't really make much difference at all in the end. And not that Lucroy's catching cost them the game, because that wasn't, again, the issue. It was a total lack of offense for them. I was surprised, and I'm really curious to see how much longer they try to go with the three catchers thing. It doesn't seem like it's something that you're going to have long term. I suppose if some of the COVID players aren't activated Monday, you could keep them a little bit longer. But if they are all back, I don't see how you find room to keep a third catcher. I just don't think it's justified at this point. Are you interested in buying or selling your home? Support for Nats Chat comes from Rachel Levy of Compass Real Estate. By focusing on the personal parts of the real estate process and using technology to simplify the rest, Rachel seamlessly guides her clients through their experience. Rachel uses her deep local knowledge and exceptional customer service to advocate for her clients all across D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. To learn more, follow her on Instagram @RealEstateRachel.
Hey, Nats Chat listeners, this is Tim Shovers, producer of the podcast, here to tell you about FanDuel. I am so excited that baseball is back. There's nothing like watching a game with great weather, a cold drink, and a little action on FanDuel Sportsbook. We had ridiculously great weather this weekend here in D.C. on Sunday. Hopefully we get that weather next weekend. If you've never been on baseball before, now is the perfect time to give it a shot. FanDuel is letting new users swing for the fences risk-free. You'll get up to $1,000 back if your first bet doesn't win. And once you have an account, you can get up to $25 back each day if your same-game parlay bet falls one leg short. This way, you can combine multiple baseball bets for an even bigger win all season long. I created my account, just looking at all the options. Just go on, make an account. There are so many. It's an infinite amount of baseball bets you can make every single day. It's a sports fan's dream. There is a reason FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook. The app is simple to use. They've got great odds on all different betting markets, unique, fun bet types like same-game parlay, and always on promotions to let you get more action out of every game day. And when you win, FanDuel will pay your winnings in as little as 24 hours. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up with promo code CHAT to get in on the action. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code CHAT. 21 plus and present in Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, or West Virginia. First online real money wager only for risk-free bet. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site. Credit that expires in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-9-WITH in Indiana, 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-GAMBLER, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Virginia, Tennessee, 1-800-889-9789, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net.
3-2 coming to Taylor. Swing and a miss on a changeup. He struck him out. So Max fans 2 in a 1-2-3 inning. He has 5 strikeouts on the board.
Max Scherzer, he was quite good on Sunday. We talked on Sunday's podcast, which we taped late Saturday night off that loss, about the importance of Game 3. And, you need Max to be more Max-like instead of giving up 4 homers like he did in the season opener. And Max was good. 1 run in 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, gave up just 3 hits, 2 doubles and a single, 1 walk through 90 pitches. And the 1 run he gave up, it really was unfortunate. It comes in the bottom of the second. And really, largely thanks to bad luck. It was a hard hit ball that wound up being the RBI double, but Max gives up a leadoff single to Max Muncy, and then that 2-out full count RBI double to Zach McKinstry. There's that name. Deep fly ball that Victor Robles loses in the sun. The sun monster gets to Robles. The ball falls at the base of the wall. And that was not like a cheapy hit, but that's a play clearly that Robles should have made. Loses the ball in the sun, and you end up giving up a run there.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just because I watched the Nationals more than anybody else, but I just feel like these guys lose more balls in the sun at critical moments than anybody. Jason Worth used to do it. Bryce Harper used to do it. Now Robles did it. I don't know. Maybe it happens to everyone. It's just because, we watch them every day that we notice these things. But, I asked Davey, because he's a former outfielder himself, is there a technique to dealing with a ball in the sun? And he said there actually is. There are things you can do to try to position yourself as best as you can, or almost wait for it to come out of the sun before you then try to pick up on it. And it was clear I mean, very early on that play that Robles had no idea where it was. And again, I'm not going to 100% fault a guy when a ball gets lost in the sun. What are you supposed to do? But there are some techniques to try to combat it. You just hope it doesn't happen at a critical moment. And the problem is, for any other team, any other situation that happens in the second inning, it's 1-0. You're thinking, all right, shake it off, go get him. But for this team right now, that one run felt like an awful lot.
Yeah, like what you said earlier, their margin for error is razor thin. So when something flukish like that happens, it's not just, you shrug it off and you move on. It's like, oh my God, we're down a run. Now what? The insurmountable 1-0 deficit. The Nats, it's not a good spot to be in right now. You need stellar defense, and you didn't get it in that spot. And, ironically enough, from the guy who, at least at his best, is clearly your best defensive player. With Max Scherzer, though, I know you tweeted about this. The pitches that he had working on Sunday, what'd you make of that part of his game?
Yeah, I mean, really good. Everything was good, but especially his cutter and slider, which sort of look the same. They're a little bit different. The cutter's going to move a little harder, move a little more horizontally. The slider's going to be a few miles an hour less and break downward a little bit more. But at one point, it was 15 out of the 17 sliders and cutters that he had thrown were for strikes. Now, that's phenomenal that he did that. I also thought, and you could see it right in the first inning, and boy, how many people were breathing a sigh of relief when he retired the side on 7 pitches in the bottom of the first, given his first inning woes before. He just looked more relaxed out there. The velocity on the fastball wasn't necessarily super high. It was 92 to 94, but he was in complete control. It seemed like all his body parts were in sync. There was nothing going on that looked wrong with him, and that set the tone for the entire afternoon. Again, to look at bright sides of all this, I thought Scherzer looked fantastic. And yes, he was pulled after 6 innings, 90 pitches. That's not going to be that way for long. You're going to see him build up next time out and the time after that. He'll be going 7 or even 8 innings on a day like that, and maybe that helps give him a better chance of winning. But that was super encouraging to me. What Scherzer and Strasburg have now done each of their last outings, as we said, if you're going to win, it's going to be behind your aces in large part. They did just about everything you could do to win a game.
Yeah, and you could throw Joe Ross into the mix there with how he did in that game 1 against the Dodgers on Friday. Scherzer in a perfect 4th inning, striking out Max Muncy on 5 pitches for the second out, then striking out Chris Taylor on 7 pitches for the third out. Scherzer had it going on. Like Mark said, does get pulled after 6 innings, after 90 pitches, and into the game comes Tanner Rainey. And, right now there's a whole lot of focus on the Nationals offense and on the COVID-19 situation. But how about the situation now with Tanner Rainey profiling as, this young flame-throwing reliever who maybe ends up being your best reliever in the 2021 season, right? Had such a good, encouraging 2020. He suffers that injury in spring training, that muscle strain near the right collarbone, doesn't make his exhibition debut until March 21st. His first appearance of this 2021 season comes in that doubleheader last Wednesday against Atlanta, that doubleheader sweep, Game 2. Rainey gives up 2 runs in the 7th to break the scoreless tie, including that 2-out full count pinch 2-run homer to Pablo Sandoval. And then in this game on Sunday at the Dodgers, Tanner Rainey in appearance number 2, a 2-out 2-run homer to Zach McKinstry. There's that name again.
The 2-1 from Rainey is cracked to deep right center field. Soto chasing this one toward the gap. Not going to get there, and it's gone. Over the 375 mark, a 2-run homer just clears
to right center in the bottom of the 7th for a 3-0 Dodgers lead. And I don't know about you, but like when McKinstry hit that homer, 3-0 felt like 12-0. You were like, all right, this is over. You just did not have any faith that the Nats would rally and to, come back and win. But Rainey, man, this is not the way it's supposed to be with this guy. 2 appearances, 2 big bombs that he's given up.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's one guy in the Dodgers lineup you don't want to beat you, it is Zach McKinstry. Everybody knows that one.
Yeah. You're
right. It's disappointing. I think it does fall into that. It's still early from a guy who didn't get a full spring the way they wanted him to. Velocity's not all the way back yet. The home run came on a 94-mile-an-hour fastball. He should be 97, 98, maybe even more than that. It's not there yet. The only way it's going to get there is if he keeps pitching. And so they're going to have to put him out there. They had various days off. They're now in a stretch where they're playing basically every day. Maybe that'll be good for a lot of them in the bullpen to start developing a routine where they're basically pitching every other day, maybe back-to-back days at times. Brad Hand got into the game for the first time. We haven't seen a whole lot of Daniel Hudson yet. Like you said, Rainey only twice. They need to be ahead or tied to use your best relievers, but maybe they can start getting a little bit more of a pattern for all of them and help get guys into more of a rhythm. So far for Rainey, not good, but, again, I'm going to give it a little more time. I want to see once he gets throwing more and has more workload, does the velocity go up and does he look a little sharper?
Yeah, no Wander Suero on Sunday.
No, and didn't warm up as far as we know. So the first time this year, 0 for Wander Suero.
On the 7th day, he rested, thank God. Wander Suero not made the pitch finally. But yes, Brad Hand, that's another kind of, if you're looking for positives, that was one. Brad Hand looked quite good on Sunday. Perfect 8th inning, struck out Corey Seager on 5 pitches for the 3rd out. You know, it's interesting you bring up Hudson. I was thinking of that the other day. I don't think it says much good about their faith in Hudson that we've seen Hudson as infrequently as we have so far. You know, we know Hudson did not have a good 2020. He did not have a good exhibition season. I don't get the sense that they're feeling it right now with Daniel Hudson.
It could be. I think it also may be some of the situations they were in. I mean, Saturday night, they were well behind most of the night, so they kind of threw the B bullpen guys. Didn't use him Friday, probably because they've been saving him to close until Hand was available. So that may have something to do with it. It's a little odd. You know, maybe there's a little hesitation there. Let's see. You know, on Monday and Tuesday in St. Louis, if they're in a position late in the game where it is tied or they're up a run or two, let's see who they go to. We're going to start to get a sense now of who he actually trusts. I think Hudson's going to be in that mix. I think Hand is probably his 9th inning guy unless there are big lefties up in the 8th inning. But if not, if Hand is pitching the 9th, I think we're probably going to see Hudson in the 8th, especially as Rainey is not all the way there yet. I think at the moment it would be Hudson over Rainey.
So if Hand is the number 1 reliever, you think Hudson's the number 2? Like in Davey's mind, his bullpen hierarchy, you still think he's got Hudson number 2?
I think as of today, yes. If Rainey is more in full form that he should be, maybe that flip-flops there and he gets to Rainey. But I do think Davey still trusts Hudson. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the right call. I'm not saying that Hudson is going to be great. But what he did for him in 2019 as a veteran with more of a track record and a guy who had a healthy spring and got the workload that he needed, I think right now he probably would be number 2 on Davey's depth chart.
All right, so 1-5, 6 games into the season. Panic we shall not, but note the state of things we shall. You got 3 games coming up at the St. Louis Cardinals, Monday night, Tuesday night, and then Wednesday afternoon. And then you come home and hopefully can kind of just, get your footing. Hopefully everyone's back by then. You'll have a 4-game series against Arizona, followed by 3 games against St. Louis. But with the 1-5 start headed to the Cardinals, do you view this as, hey, you got to take minimum 2 out of 3, or are we not there yet at saying you got to do this or that in any given series?
Probably not. I mean, yeah, it would be nice to win 2 out of 3 and actually win a series here, but I just don't know if they can fully say anything less than that's a disappointment. They just need to win some games. They need to start scoring some runs, obviously. So let's see if Bell and Schwarber and Harrison are in the lineup on Monday, which I do think is possible. Then I think we can start holding them to a little different standard. They're facing John Gant on Monday. That's actually probably their best chance in the series with Flaherty and then Wainwright the rest of the series. So I would think if there's a night for the offense to break out, Monday's their best hope for it, although they have hit both Flaherty and Wainwright well in the past. But I guess what I would say is it boils down to this. Yeah, 2 out of 3 would be nice, but more than anything, they need to just play some good baseball. And maybe a little, if they're going to lose, lose a game where you do score some runs, or don't lose because of a defensive mistake, a base running mistake, a late bullpen home run. If you get to the end of the night and you say, okay, we played a really good game, we just lost by a run or 2. Okay, fine. Everything's going to be okay in the long term. You don't want to see these same patterns repeating themselves, especially once they have a full roster together. That's where you start to get more concerned. So yeah, obviously you have to win at least 1. You'd like to win 2. But I'm looking more for how do they look as a team? How do they play, especially if the roster is essentially at full strength, aside from maybe John Lester?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to avoid losing a ball in the sun. You'd like to avoid, something, I mean, not to pick on Victor Robles, but, something like him getting thrown out trying to steal second base in that Game 1 loss to the Dodgers, like stuff like that. They got to clean. It's the little things, as Davey likes to say, that they need to clean up as well. One more thing on the offense. So Schwarber and Bell, obviously, if they are as they have been previously, could really help this lineup. Each guy, though, did struggle quite a bit in 2020. Do the Nats feel confident that the Bell and Schwarber we saw last season will not be the Bell and Schwarber that we'll see this season?
As confident as they can be. The evidence would be that they both look good this spring, especially Bell, who, Ryan Zimmerman was the only hitter in baseball who had a better spring than Josh Bell. And Schwarber was pretty good too. So I think that's the evidence on their side. They like the changes they've made working with Kevin Long. In Schwarber's case, squatting down more with his stance instead of being so upright like he was the last few years, going back to a stance he had when he was in college. And Bell, I thought it was really interesting. He said this spring that he feels so much less pressure on him now than he did with Pittsburgh. And the reason was, he said, when he looks at who all the other guys are in this lineup, and he realizes, okay, it's not all on me. I've got Soto, I've got Turner, I've got Robles, I've got Schwarber, I've got Zimmerman. He just feels like he can be one of the guys now and not necessarily the one who has to deliver. Now, we say all that, and what have we been talking about this entire episode? Boy, they really need Josh Bell in the middle of the lineup to finally start scoring runs. So, maybe he will feel a little bit of the pressure on day one. But he seemed to be in a pretty good place mentally. The only thing I'd worry about, both of those guys have traditionally been pretty streaky hitters. When they're on, they're really on. When they're not, they're really off. And what did this layoff do? They were working out on their own at home, swinging off a tee, maybe in the backyard a little bit. I mean, there was not a lot they could do. And they're probably not going to get into any kind of game situation before they're thrown into the fire. So that would be a little bit of a concern. Do they lose whatever momentum they had at the end of spring training? But I just don't think the team can afford to wait any longer. Once they're eligible, they need to be in there.
No doubt. And Bell did have a monster 2019 for the Pirates. So you've got that to lean on in terms of optimism. And you just hope, we've talked about this, but defensively, each guy is a minus defender. Bell is not good at first base. Schwarber has not been good in left field. So you just hope that the Nationals are able to do well enough defensively with those guys in the lineup, and that what those guys bring as batters overrides whatever deficiencies they may bring to the table defensively. Fedde, Strasburg, Ross will be your three National starting pitchers at the Cardinals over these next three games. Again, hit us up on Twitter at Nats_chat. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on the Nats Chat podcast are brought to us by 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.